this audit rejected the claim that Donald Trump won in Arizona. I never really understood members from Arizona challenging the result by which they themselves were elected in the exact same election where they were elected. And yet still, I believe, and perhaps Mr. Biggs can correct me if I'm wrong, I hear him not even to be accepting the results of this audit, which say that Joe Biden got more votes than were lawfully reported by the state. And so
will the gentleman yield? You've called me out and asked if I would respond. I'm happy to respond.
Yes, but by all means, do you accept this audit which showed that Joe Biden won, and indeed by more votes than...
That is not what the audit concluded, Mr. Raskin. You know better than that. Have you read the whole audit, or you cherry-picked the line which talks about the recount versus the tabulation machines? That we would have expected to be very similar, and it was. And so anything that might have inured to President Biden's effect
is my question, Mr. Biggs. I'm happy to yield to you for that. Who won the election in Arizona? Donald Trump?
We don't know, because as the audit, it demonstrates very clearly, Mr. Raskin, there are a lot of issues with this election that took place. We're going to go through those today, but you can continue, speaking of the big lie, you can continue to perpetuate it as long as you want, but we're going to find out.
Madam Chair, there's the problem that we have. Donald Trump refused to accept the results, and unfortunately, we have one of the world's great political parties, which has followed him off of the ledge of this electoral lunacy. And it's dangerous for democracy. So I'm glad we're having this hearing today, and I yield back to you, Madam Chair.
This is Democratic lawmaker Jamie Raskin swatting down Republican lawmaker Andy Biggs at the Oversight and Reform Committee hearing about the election audit in Arizona. You know, the audit in the state where Andy Biggs didn't agree with the election results, except for his own election, which occurred on the exact same ballot that he's disputing. Checks out, huh? Now, right off the bat, the fact that Andy Biggs is even present on this committee during this hearing is an absolute miscarriage of justice, considering he himself is implicated in the entire election theft fiasco being perpetrated by Republicans that the Arizona audit was born out of. Here's a clip of Ali Alexander, the organizer of the Stop the Steal rally on January 6th, admitting in a video that Andy Biggs himself assisted him in organizing what would ultimately form the foundation for the insurrection at the U.S. Capitol.
So I want to let you guys know how we're responding, because I was the person who came up with the January 6th idea with Congressman Gosar, Congressman Mo Brooks, and then Congressman Andy Biggs. We four schemed up of putting maximum pressure on Congress while they were voting so that who we couldn't lobby, we could change the hearts and the minds of Republicans who were in that body hearing our loud war from outside.
Now, Ali Alexander himself was just subpoenaed today by the House, which means that his involvement will be fleshed out in full by the committee. But that certainly doesn't bode well for a certain sitting congressman from Arizona who was directly implicated by the same guy who was just subpoenaed to appear in front of Congress. Which might explain why Biggs is desperately doubling and tripling down on his fairy tale that Trump won the election, because that would mean that as a result, he would be totally justified in being a central figure in organizing the rally that would supposedly shine a light on that. In reality, he knows that he's screwed, and so he has no choice but to pretend that the election was stolen from Trump as a last-ditch effort to try and save himself. And so when Raskin asks quite plainly who won the election in Arizona, of course Biggs pretends that the jury's still out. In terms of Trump losing the election because of some still yet to be proven fraud, that matter's been put to rest repeatedly. Trump's own Department of Justice, led by Bill Barr, conceded that the election was fair. The Department of Homeland Security's Cybersecurity Unit conceded that the election was fair. Every single recount and audit, both legitimate and not, have also shown the same results. And as far as the latest audit here, the one carried out by the Cyber Ninjas, it's especially telling that even after this sideshow, conducted by a firm with zero election audit experience, whose founder was at the Stop the Steal rally, that still found that Joe Biden won, Biggs is still, somehow, twisting himself into pretzels that, oh, you guys are only looking at the recount and not the tabulation machines. If the goalposts were moved any further, they would be in the parking lot. Just so we're clear, what the Cyber Ninjas did was not a real audit. They were brought in by Republican operatives as a last-ditch effort to humor their delusions of a non-existent Trump win. And yet that even those people, whose sole job was to validate a scam, not only couldn't manage to gin up a Trump win, but came out with Trump losing by an even larger margin, goes to show that there is no planet on which these Republicans can finagle their delusions into reality. Even the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors, on which 4 out of 5 members are Republicans, were able to admit what a sham it was, calling it a spectacle that is harming all of us, and saying, quote, "Our state has become a laughingstock. Worse, this audit is encouraging our citizens to distrust elections, which weakens our democratic republic." Maricopa County Board of Supervisors Chairman Jack Sellers, a Republican, even said, quote, "I will not be responding to any more requests from this sham process. Finish your audit and be ready to defend what you're finding in a court of law." Meaning that on one side, you have the entire federal government, state government, and local officials who've all found the exact same result, that Joe Biden won the election, and on the other side, you've got Andy Biggs and whoever else fit themselves into that clown car alongside him, saying that in fact everyone else is wrong and they're the ones who are right. So yeah, take all the time you need with that one. Look, at the end of the day, what's important to remember is this. These Republicans like Andy Biggs know that the audits are a sham, they know that Trump lost, and they know that they're pushing a lie. But it's not actually about the findings, it's about keeping up the optics that nefarious behavior occurred. The more audits, the more hearings, the more questions, the more that Republicans can continue to pretend that Trump won the last election, so that he'll seem less toxic if he runs again in 2024. And it'll also serve as justification to continue passing voter suppression laws under the guise of election integrity that make it more difficult for Democrats to win, which is what happens when turnout is high. This is all a coordinated scheme to undermine democracy, being carried out by hacks like Andy Biggs, who are well aware that the only way for them to take power is by illegitimate means. Republicans might claim to stand for the Constitution or the flag or democracy. In reality, they stand only for themselves. To see more videos like this, click the subscribe button right here on this screen. And if you want to support my work, subscribe to my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen. I cover the most important stories each week, and my guest is always one of the top political figures, including Vice President Kamala Harris, Jen Psaki, Elizabeth Warren, Pete Buttigieg, Nancy Pelosi, Katie Porter, Cory Booker, and so many more. The podcast link is also right here on this screen, so give it a listen and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.